Well, folks, for the first time all season, the Houston Texans are not playing at 1 o'clock Eastern. They're going to play at night. I'll let you know firsthand. I'm not going to lie. It kind of stinks having to wait all day to watch your team play. Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jaguar Gamer 9, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are talking about the Week 18 NFL schedule. Wanted to get this out yesterday, but we're going to do it today. The Week 18 schedule, I just want to give you my thoughts on the TV times for the games, what I like, what I don't like, what I think the NFL got right, what I think they got wrong, and let's go from there. So if you don't know how Week 18 works with the schedule, every game is to be determined at the start of the year. And then on Sunday Night Football, 1 week before all the Week 18 games are played, they announce the times and the dates of the games. They'll have your 1 o'clock slate, your 4 o'clock slate. Usually they backload the 4 o'clock slate, so it's way better than the 1 o'clock slate. They'll have 2 games on Saturday, both on ABC and ESPN. And then, of course, you have Sunday Night Football on NBC. Now, starting with the Sunday Night Football game, because that was the most obvious choice that NBC has had to make in a long time, maybe the most obvious choice ever for a Sunday Night Football game to end the season. Bills-Dolphins, that is a perfect game in terms of what NBC and the schedule makers are looking for. Because it's tricky with Week 18. Because you need to have 2 things. You need a game that's meaningful, at the same time, a game that is meaningless to the rest of the league. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can't have any games that are impacted by the other team's results. As an easy example for that, let's say in some crazy, bizarre world that you had Cowboys-Commanders as the Sunday Night Football game. Again, that did not happen, but let's say Cowboys-Commanders was Sunday Night Football. Well, that game could mean something for the Cowboys. It could absolutely mean, because if they win the division. But at the same time, the Eagles played the Giants earlier in the day. So if the Eagles lose that game, and the Cowboys, they could just rest their starters for that Sunday Night Football game against the Commanders, and that game would be completely meaningless. So you need a game that has implications for both the teams playing in it, where they're both going to play their starters, where it has meaningful playoff implications, but at the same time, doesn't impact anything in the rest of the league in terms of how they're going to play the game at hand. No one's going to rest their starters this game, because this is obvious. Win, and you win the AFC East. Lose, and you get a wild card, or in Buffalo's case, lose, and you could be out of the playoffs entirely. This is the perfect scenario. NBC and the NFL, they love those winning games for prime time, and this is the perfect fit for that. You got 2 big markets, 2 franchise quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa. It makes perfect sense to have this game as the Sunday Night Football game. No surprises there. I don't think anyone is shocked that Bills-Dolphins will be the final regular season game of the year. Now, as for the Saturday games, Texans-Colts, that makes a ton of sense to put in at Saturday at 8:15, the second game of the doubleheader. You got 2 teams fighting for a playoff spot. The winner is in. The loser is pretty much out. It's a winning game for both these teams. Again, you like putting those winning games in prime time. And the best part with something like this is that it doesn't impact how the rest of the league will play. The Jaguars-Titans game, the Jaguars are still going to play their starters no matter what happens in Texans-Colts, because the Jaguars have to beat the Titans, so there's no implication in that regard where you could say, well, wait a second, this is unfair because depending on how this game goes, the Jags who get a de facto bye week, they don't have to play their starters. There's nothing like that here. Texans-Colts is the perfect game to put in on that Saturday night time slot. The interesting one, and the one that a lot of people are up in arms with, and I don't disagree with you, is the Steelers-Ravens game Saturday at 4:30. That's the first game of the doubleheader for the Saturday slate. Now, here's the problem with this game. This game has no implications for the Ravens whatsoever. That means that the Ravens are going to play their backups. At the same time, it's Steelers-Ravens. It's a big rivalry. You got 2 big fan bases. It's a matchup that a lot of people want to see, but you're probably not seeing the starters play for Baltimore. They might put in the backups. They might take it easy because, again, they've got the number 1 seed all wrapped up. They don't have anything to play for. So we're really seeing the Steelers against the Ravens backups in this time slot. And it's interesting why they put this game on versus another game that actually had playoff implications where both teams are going to play their stars. I thought for sure that we would see Falcons-Saints in the early window because that game has tons of implications. Falcons-Saints, the winner, takes first place in the NFC South for the moment. The loser is out. And then Buccaneers-Panthers, you have that on Sunday. You figure the AFC South is doing the same thing where you have second and third place square off against each other. The winner has a shot at the division, and then Jaguars-Titans the next day. Jaguars could take the division there. You figure the NFC South would do the same thing, but no, they're going to play both NFC South games at the same time at 1 o'clock. I'm not crazy about this, if only because we have a precedent for this. Remember back in 2021, when they first did this Saturday doubleheader, they had Eagles-Cowboys as one of the games. You had a big rivalry, two marquee teams, but the Eagles had nothing to play for. So they put in their backups. Gardner Minshew started that game, and it was a complete and utter blowout to the surprise of no one because, again, the Eagles had nothing to play for. So I'm worried that we're going to get something like this here. We might get an uncompetitive game and we see backups in there, and that's not what the NFL wants to show in prime time. So I'm a bit confused why they did that over a game like Falcons-Saints that has absolutely massive playoff implications where both teams will play their starters and where the stakes are so much higher. Because, again, with the Steelers, too, they could still get into the playoffs with a loss. If every team is 9-8, they have the tiebreaker over every team. So this game, the playoff implications, they're not very high compared to some other games on the schedule that we're going to get to. Now, as for the Sunday slate of games, you've got 6 games at the 1 o'clock window, and you've got 7 games at the 4 o'clock window. This is not uncommon. I know it feels a bit weird that there's more 4 o'clock games than 1 o'clock games. It usually doesn't happen for the first 17 weeks of the season. It's actually extremely rare that it happens for the first 17 weeks of the season. The only time I can remember it happened in the last decade was back in 2020 when CBS was televising the Masters, which was moved to the fall due to COVID. And the 4 o'clock slate was absolutely jammed because CBS couldn't show any games at 1 o'clock due to their contractual obligations to show the Masters. But for Week 18, the final week of the season, that doesn't apply. There's usually always more 4 o'clock games than 1 o'clock games. There's no real surprises here. Back on stream, I can link the video. I predicted entirely what I thought the schedule was going to be in terms of the time slots. So here's my prediction. In terms of the games, here's my prediction. Nothing official. Here's my prediction. Bears-Packers, 4:25, CBS. Cowboys-Commanders, 4:25, Fox. Broncos-Raiders, 4:25, CBS. Jaguars-Titans, 1 o'clock, CBS. Eagles-Giants, 4:25, Fox. Seahawks-Cardinals, 4:25, CBS. Vikings-Lions, probably looking at 1 o'clock, Fox. Falcons-Saints, 1 o'clock on CBS. Buccaneers-Panthers, 1 o'clock, CBS. Jets-Pats, 1 o'clock on... Oh, wait, hang on. Now we're getting the games. Okay, here we go. I think I might have called it around the money. I was going to say Jets-Pats, 1 o'clock on Fox. All right. So there we go. 1 o'clock games. Falcons, Saints, Browns, Bengals, Jags, Titans, Vikings, Lions, Jets, Pats, Bucks, Panthers. Here we go. 4:25, Bears, Packers, Seahawks, Cardinals, Rams, Niners. Yep, okay, so no shocker there. No shocker there. Did I call the times on the money or what? And everything here I've got no problem with. Obviously, you have to put Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Giants. You have to put those at the same time because those games have implications on each other. The big thing with the schedule is you need to put games on at the same time where they have implications. So as an example, you can't do Eagles, Giants, and Cowboys, Commanders at different times. Because let's say you put Cowboys, Commanders on at 1 o'clock and Eagles, Giants on at 4:25. If the Cowboys win their game against the Commanders, the Eagles would just rest their stars, and vice versa. You put the Eagles, Giants game at 1 o'clock, the Giants win that game, the Cowboys, Commanders at 4:25, the Cowboys would rest their stars. The NFL does not want to do that. It creates a competitive disadvantage going to the playoffs. It makes for a bad product, and I completely understand why. So you have to put those games at the same time. No shocker there. Obviously, because the Seahawks and Cardinals, the Seahawks game impacts the Packers because they're fighting for that wild card spot. That game has to be at 4:25 because it's in Arizona. You have to start that at 4:25 Eastern. So naturally, you had to put Bears-Packers on at that same time too. And then you got 3 West Coast games. They had to be at 4:25 for obvious reasons. Broncos, Raiders, Rams, Niners, and Chiefs, Chargers. You're not starting those games at what would be 10 o'clock in the morning local time. Which means the 1 o'clock games, it makes sense why you have that. Obviously, the 4 o'clock slate is a lot better than the 1 o'clock slate. The 1 o'clock slate, it's really a winning game in Jaguars-Titans, a winning game in Buccaneers-Panthers. And then Falcons-Saints could be an interesting game, but again, depending on how the Buccaneers-Panthers game goes, it might not mean anything. Vikings-Lions, again, a game that doesn't really mean a whole lot. Jets-Patriots, both teams out. Browns-Bengals, Browns to block their seating up. Bengals are officially out. So it makes sense that those games are 1 o'clock, because again, the 4 o'clock slate is way more heavy than the 1 o'clock slate. It's been that way for quite some time for the Week 18 games. So really, I've got no complaints in terms of how they design the schedule. Nothing's really too shocking except for Steelers-Ravens Saturday 4:30, because that game doesn't have the playoff implications that a game like Falcons-Saints would have. And at the same time, the Ravens will be playing their backups, so it might not make for an entertaining product in the slightest bit. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below if you think they got it right. Personally, if I were in charge of the NFL, it's never going to happen because the TV networks would not be thrilled about it because you're losing primetime games, you're losing money. But personally, if it were up to me, I would put all the AFC games on at 3 o'clock, all the NFC games on at 6:30, do like the Premier League, where every game in the same conference is starting at the same time. But that's just me. I have no complaints about the schedule other than Steelers-Ravens. I think Falcons-Saints should have been the Saturday 4:30 Eastern game. That is going to do it for this episode of JG9 News. If you like what we saw, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. If you like NFL history and like all things in the NFL, go to Jaguar Gamer 9, my official channel, where we talk all things NFL all the time on there. Until next time, Jaguar Gamer 9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.